Hello, hello, my Soulpreneur Life family and friends. Today we have a beautiful guest coming all the way from Australia to share a little bit about her story, how we've been connected, and I've had the honor of just watching her evolve into the most beautiful soul and person throughout her journey of just like that transformation that a lot of times we don't get to see with one another. But she's going to share a little bit about her story, and we're going to talk about some really real and raw topics today that we hope you can take some value away from that will be transformational for you too. So Miss Gaia, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi everyone. My name is Gaia. This is literally the first podcast I've ever recorded, and I've always dreamed of recording podcasts in my spare time. So this is like huge for me, and I'm just so honored to be here and to share this time and space with you. And I'm so honored to even just connect with you. It's really strange. Like, I meet up with the most incredible people in my life through Facebook. Like, don't know what that is, but I think it's just the universe going, hey, you're not going to meet them any other way. So here you go. I'm going to make it easy for you.
Right.
So I guess, like I was saying to Kendra before, like I'm kind of moving out of a space where I don't want to be defined by what I do. But what I do is I have a small business. I work with animals. They have my heart forever. I want to work more with animals. I want to incorporate the healing, transformational work that I'm doing with animals. And obviously I want to help people too along the way if I can. I would describe myself as a student of the universe for sure. Like the universe, like it definitely speaks through me every day. Like, for example, over the past few months, every single day I've been seeing the number 33 or 333. And I look into the number and it talks about creativity, and that's definitely a part of my life where like I want to expand into. So it's just like all these beautiful things are lining up, and I feel honored to notice them. And I feel like we all have these beautiful signs around us. We just have to notice them a little bit more. But yeah, I want to use my voice more, and it's fitting because it's full moon Leo at the moment too. So I feel like I'm exactly where I need to be, I'm exactly where I need to be. And yeah, you feel that?
Yeah, I love that a lot because you mentioned something about, just the gratitude for shifting your awareness to the things that you are noticing shifting and changing within your awareness. And that's a lot of what I practice what I preach, but that's a lot of what I help people with too, is like notice what's around you, because when we have that awareness of what is happening, not only do some people find comfort in that safety, because then they're like, okay, now I can see a pattern, now I can understand, or now I can connect these dots for these things that are aligning for me. And it's not just chaos working against me, right? Like there are things that are lining up so that it's almost like a path or a stepping stone path to both your understanding and your progression for that transformation to something bigger or greater or more authentically you, right?
Yeah. And for so long, like I've gone through this like inward journey of like trying to figure everything out and like beating myself up in a way, like emotionally, because like I'm like, oh, I should be this, I should be that. And
those darn shoulds.
like honestly, as women, like the amount of times that we should on ourselves, and even just for me learning more about my human design. If you've never heard of human design, look it up. I'm a manifestor, so I'm like literally 9% of the population. I'm not supposed to be like everyone else, and I'm like growing into that, learning, look girl, like it's okay, and you got to hold your hand through this. But like it's possible, like it's so possible, and you are here to do amazing work. And it's not all the things that you worry about. It's literally like those are the symptoms of it, but being a human, the human condition. But we are here for so much more, and we're here to share our gifts. So I'm here humbly showing my gifts, hoping that other people will feel comfortable and embodied to do the same for themselves. And
Yes.
like, I want to have fun with it, you know, like I don't want to be like moping around thinking, oh, I could have done this differently. I could have done that differently. Like that doesn't feel right. And the whole time it's just pressure from outside, you know. I'm like learning to simplify. If it's pressure from outside, I can take it or leave it, you know, like I don't have to take it to heart. And as women, we often will take that and we'll take it very seriously and we'll let it affect us. And it's also what we allow. And, you know, that's not to say that awful things have happened to people, of course. It's one of those things where you have to realize how much you're a participant in your own creation and in your own existence. So I'm like in that process. I'm like, I have to be myself at this point, you know, there's no other choice.
And so many people, and this is why I always scream this from every rooftop that I can get on top of to scream it, is because so often we find ourselves stuck in the cycle of life, right? The machine that is life and capitalism, and we have to survive and we have to pay rent and we have to do all these things. And so we get so deeply rooted in that it becomes our identity, and we don't allow ourselves that space, like you mentioned, for creativity and fun and releasing the pressure and realizing like this baggage, this stress, this choice, it has absolutely nothing to do with me. That is a you problem. And this is me over here. I'm choosing to let that go. Right. Because a lot of that, it has people playing small or living in these confined versions of themselves, right? And you start to outgrow them, and then you're looking around at your surroundings like, okay, what does this mean for my relationships, for my friends, for my job, my business, my family, my kids? And then you put yourself back into that lane of stress and shoulds and confusion. So I love that you are out here playing with it and having fun and understanding that you can be creative as you're transitioning out of all of that pressure that you shared that you had when you were really kind of just blaming yourself or comparing yourself to what you were seeing around you. I think it's the most beautiful thing because you are not alone. I was once there, and you saw me when I was once there, and, you know, seeing you come out of that transition and shining your light and saying, you know, I don't have the full blueprint. I don't have the full roadmap to where I'm going, but I know that my next step is right in front of me. And so I'm going to take it, and trusting in that. I think that is one of the most empowering things. I love
Yes,
that.
girl.
What do you think got you to that point where you're just like, I'm done with the bullshit. I am ready to feel good. I'm ready to live a life that's mine.
I think I just started listening to myself,
Yeah.
and I stopped listening to the noise around me.
Mhm.
And I think innately we know that it's there, and we will distract ourselves and we'll call ourselves busy. And, you know, we'll do the whole female thing and, you know, take it all on board and just like for me personally, it was really just a matter of stepping out of my masculine energy.
Mhm.
Um,
Which isn't
like,
an easy thing to do. So the fact that's
no.
like, that's not a small thing.
Yeah, it's so layered, and it for so many of us it goes back to when we were born, you know, like I picked up things from my mum when I was in the womb, like we all did, you know.
Our DNA
So you
literally
think
does.
about unlearning from that stage, it's like I it kind of blows my mind to think that like we've picked up so much. And I think like for sure we have influences from past lifetimes.
Yeah.
That's just me personally. But there's so much richness within you that you just don't see. It's not normalized that, you know, it's only really these days where it's kind of more normalized. But like back in the day, I would be I would be torn between, you know, what I thought other people wanted for me and what I actually truly want for me.
Yeah.
And I got a lot confused.
Mhm.
So yeah, it's really fascinating to me to like it's blowing my mind right now that I'm actually sitting here talking to you about it, because I feel like I've been through so much and done a 360, and it's been such an internal process. And I never thought I would like sit and talk to someone, especially on this scale, about it. But that's life for you, you know.
Manifested it.
I know. I like, for me, I went through my Saturn return. I went so inward. And for those who don't know what your Saturn return is, it's a point around 27 to approximately like your early 30s, where the Saturn positions itself exactly where it was when you were born. So it's done a complete 360 around the globe. And it's one of the slowest moving planets. That's why it takes so long. And with that slow energy comes all of this pent up energy of, it's related to the masculine, it's related to responsibility, it's related to how you work, how you define yourself in your career as well. So there's a lot of, and I've personally in my own chart, I've got 3 planets in Capricorn too. So I was feeling it really heavy. And I know you were too during your Saturn return is Capricorn. But it really, it pulls you out from the inside, and you feel like I would describe it to friends as like I was on a life raft in the middle of nowhere. And that sounds awful. Like if you were literally on a life raft in the middle of nowhere, you'd be petrified.
Yeah.
But for me, it was like this calm that I hadn't experienced before, because it was such an inward process that I had no choice but to pay attention to what I was doing and what I was feeling. Yeah. So
yes,
yeah,
I resonate so much with what you're saying. I'm like,
yeah.
And
from that place is truly like the most insane wisdom you've ever experienced in your life. And it doesn't happen just once. It happens every like 27 or so years of your life. So you're on a continuous spiral, and it's what you make of it, really. Like that's the lesson of the Saturn return. It's what you make of it. And so that process was more about releasing those sorts of energies, those masculine energies. And in that place, you either choose to continue that way or you choose a different way. And there are times where like I kind of slipped back into that. And there are times when I just let myself just be. And embracing the feminine has been something that's been really actually exciting for me, because it's so unknown. It's like coming back to an old friend that you haven't seen for so long and going, hey, I remember you, and I remember how you've helped me, and I remember how much you've supported me. And you just give it this like big warm hug, you know. And there's a part of you that remembers that, and there's a part of you that keeps that within you, with no matter what you do. It's whether you choose to tap into that as to whether it expresses. So yeah, so I've been experiencing that, which is, it's no easy feat, but at the same time, like I feel like I was meant to experience it all along. So for me, there's a part of myself that knows how to do that and knows how to tap into that. And it's like a muscle, you know, you really got to like work it so that you know how to do it, and your conscious mind is integrated too. But I digress.
no, that's really beautiful. And I before we get too much further in the discussion, I just want to add in here, create a little bit of space so that people can actually digest what you're saying too. Because I know as I was listening to you just share about, of course, your Saturn return, which is really big for many of us, especially those of us who've been through it. And just an example of the start of my Saturn return. So if someone is wondering or thinking, around 25 is where my life kind of got the rockiness was settling. And then 26, everything was like, my life was starting to, my reference that I used was like, God put me in a water bottle, my life in a water bottle, and shook that thing so hard and then threw it out. Like he just threw it and was like, you are going to go be by yourself somewhere so that you will listen to me because you're not listening to me. Right. Like that internal guidance. And I had turned off so much of my own, they call it woman's intuition, and just like all of these other aspects of myself to survive. Right. I was in an incredibly masculine driven profession in the army, working around soldiers and doing all of these things. And then my marriage was very imbalanced as well at that time. So during the start of my Saturn return, I had just become a mother, which should be a very like feminine, soft, safe thing, but it was actually traumatic and it was unsupported. And it was the start where everything started to unravel. And my life was uprooted so that I could be planted exactly where I needed to be to have my own moment on the raft, right? Came down here to a completely different state, completely new career, all of these new things, new motherhood, in order to have that time to reflect on the past. Who have I been in the past? And, you know, a lot of women that I've come across in, whether I do past life readings with them in the Akashic Records or whatever kind of intuitive work that we do that way, a lot of it comes from the fact that they've never known themselves without some form of trauma. They've never known themselves without a partner. They've never known themselves without some outside influence, right? So when you allow yourself that space to I have full body chills, but when you allow yourself that space to become aware of who you are first, that you are planting yourself in your truth. You're allowing yourself to be vulnerable, to be real. So whatever fruit comes from that, it's authentically you. And so you feel empowered to share that, right? And I know sometimes people ask me why I share so much, or why I share the certain things that I do share, or why I invite people in the way that I do. I'm Capricorn through and through, but my rising is ruled by Venus. So my capacity for love is incredibly great. My capacity for softness is incredibly great, but you have to get through those barriers. And so I have to bridge, like you mentioned, going back and forth. I have to be that bridge to be able to be soft and also take action, because feminine energy isn't just sitting back and receiving everything. Feminine energy is about understanding, I have this feeling that this is right, this is wrong, and I'm going to do it. I'm going to receive it. This is it, right? It's not necessarily like I'm sitting back on a throne and I'm just expecting the world to like bow at my feet, because that's how social media depicts feminine energy nowadays, right? That's not it. Like, we are creators, and that creative energy that you spoke about earlier comes into play with that as well too. You create with your words, you create with your thoughts, you create with the connections and the community that you build. So when you allow yourself to be supported, when you allow yourself to share and be seen and be heard, you're pouring back into yourself, because you're already rooted in your truth. And everything else that falls away is just making room for new growth. And I think that that is incredibly beautiful. So I know that you were sharing, and I just, for some people, some of us, I know, speaking for myself, we have to have examples like, what does a Saturn return look like for me? Have I had it? And I'm just, when my Saturn return started, I know my entire life was flipped upside down. I was medically retired by 28. I was a new mom. Oh my gosh. So I think I was a new mom. I was divorcing my high school sweetheart. So all of those huge changes were hitting back to back to back to back in order to like shift me. And I'm a generator in human design. So we go through 3 phases of life where we implement, we experiment, then we like apply, and then we're like in our wisdom phase and like all of that, right? So I love that you just kind of correlate and connect all of those dots too, because the more you are aware of yourself, don't take anything as like it's written in permanent ink and it has to be this way because I'm this sign, or this is this degree and my human design says this. No, it's your experience and you get to cultivate it, but have it in your awareness, have it in your toolkit so that you can use that as you decide what type of life you are creating. And your words create your reality, your mindset, and whoever has your ear has your future is something that has always stuck with me, because that is really important. If you have a negative thought pattern and you're around people who are negative Nancy's, that's going to multiply. And I'm a walking example of that when I was going through the initial phase of my Saturn return, right? I don't know if you've noticed that when you went through your Saturn return initially, how like it's easy to kind of get pulled into replaying that toxic story because you're like, why is all of this happening?
Yeah, it's very much a situation where things break apart. And for me, it was my perception of the world and how I interpreted the world. And I'm so grateful that happened, like as hard as it was at the time, because I just questioned everything,
Yes.
like everything that I'd grown up believing, everything that I'd been, you know, even things that I associated as good beliefs, you know, things about around my spirituality. You know, my parents have always grown me up to be very spiritual, and not in a like a what's the word? Not in a like fake kind of way, just in a really like you can tap into yourself anytime you want. And it's only now that we're interpreting that as a society.
Yeah.
But back then in my Saturn return, for me, I had to break away from that and I had to question that. And you almost have to like let it go so that you can find it again. Because if you find it again and you bring yourself back to that place where you didn't think that you could get yourself there, like you didn't believe in yourself, it actually all kind of just falls into place. It's really strange. Like I was questioning, look, should I even like be going to the current spiritual group that I was in, you know? And I was reading other things and I was going like, why am I here? Like, what am I here for? I don't know my gifts. I know what I like. I know what I don't like. But being in my 20s, you know, you can only know so much without using other tools to help you realize the rest. And I definitely was searching for answers. And I had no choice but to just let go of everything around me and stop the chatter and kind of be in a place of limbo for a little while and be okay with that and accepting. You know, we always think we have to define ourselves, or we always think that we have to like be somewhere or reach our goal. It's like, no, the in-between is that perfect prime place where you can actually create who you want to be. And whether you're realizing you're doing it or not is a different thing. But for me, there were parts of me that didn't even know what was happening at the time. And I look back now and I'm thinking, wow, like I'm so glad I got uprooted like that, because my belief systems are what shapes the rest of my life, you know? So I'm actually really, really fortunate that happened. And we almost like take ourselves there in the Saturn return, you know, we almost like self-destruct so we can recreate again. And that recreation is what we're meant to do, you know? Everything dies and everything, you know, it comes back in a different form. So you might as well have some say in the process. So for me, I definitely wanted to create a life where I was living my truth. And it's still a work in progress. But that intention, once you create it for yourself, it never dies unless you kill it. So yeah, and just creating a life where I like impact people, you know, I'm able to hear from people that, you know, what I did mattered to them, and I'm able to hear their story. And like, that's what I want to do. You know, I want to share our experiences together. And so like, this is just the beginning for me, really, you know. We're only as old as we think we are. I'm thinking, oh my God, I'm in my 30s. Like, I'm so old to be doing this, but like, Far
Yeah.
out. I'm so glad I didn't do this in my 20s because like I literally had no clue what was going on. Like,
And you
yeah.
know, the I'm a deep believer for myself personally that every experience that we have or perceived failure is still a lesson, and there's something that can be learned from it. And even still to this day, I extract things from experience that were, oh my gosh, in my teenage years or in my early 20s and things like that, when I was holding positions that people in their 40s weren't even able to hold, you know? So I don't think that age is necessarily a limiting factor. And I don't know. I don't like that. I think it's kind of like labels, right? Like of
Yeah.
course we use it because it's man-made and we need it to understand how to deal with certain people or places and things and whatnot, but don't let it define you. Like, don't let that be the thing that says, I'm going to do it or I'm not going to do it. Because I've talked to so many elders who are like 70, 80, even a 90-year-old woman. I remember meeting her when I was a teenager. I don't remember exactly how old, and she was so fit. And I remember being so fascinated because she looked younger than the person I was visiting when that wasn't the case, right? And I'm like, how do you still get up and move like this? Like I was really impressed. And she was just like, it's your mindset and you just got to keep going and you do this and
Yeah.
da, da, da. And she was giving all of this advice. And when you look at like the elders who are on like the news for reaching 100 or whatever the case, I always find the women who give advice a little funny because most of the time they say don't get married. Most of the time they say, don't get married if you want to live to be
That's so
100. It's
funny.
too much stress or something like that,
Yeah.
right? But
Yeah.
that's just like, to me, a testament that you still reflect on your experiences and you continue to learn from them. And it all comes back to you do it from the inside out, right? So when I hear the funny stories about like, don't get married and you'll live to be 100 or 110 and however old that elder is that's being featured, it's not about bashing men. I know some people can take it that way and be offended, but it's literally about women taking back their power and their time to pour into themselves.
Yeah.
Because as a mom myself, I can tell you a lot of my time, and as a business owner, I can tell you a lot of my time is soothing other people in their discomfort because they haven't taken the time to get familiar with their discomfort yet.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Or
Totally.
they haven't taken time to even recognize maybe I'm the problem. Maybe this is
Yeah.
something because I've been numbing or I've been avoiding or
Yeah.
deflecting, or perhaps I've been really resistant. And then why? Why do you have that resistance, right? And of course, that goes back into the work that I do with my clients, which is really specific for their needs or whatever. But I take what I do very personally, and I do everything that from the heart because I've walked the walk and I've done a lot of the stuff that I help people with in my own experience. And I don't know everything, and I think that that's beautiful, and I would never put that title like you have to know everything. That's stressful. Why would you want to know everything?
Yeah.
But we're in a society that makes us think we have to know everything. And for women, for young girls, oftentimes so I don't mean to be long-winded here, and I'm going to give you space to talk here,
Oh,
but
it's
there was
fine.
this woman who was sharing. So in the military, I worked with computers, technology, radios, and all of that sort of thing, right? So think of like Geek Squad at like Best Buy or like a tech store. And for the very few women that were in the Signal Corps in that field, we were expected to have like this perfect knowledge. We like the expectation was perfection. Whereas the male counterparts, the counterparts who were men, were like messing stuff up and then just figuring it out on the fly, and more often than not given accolades for it because they were being really brave and trying these things. Whereas, I know, especially for me, because I was 19, 20 when I joined. So it was like, if I messed up, I just tried to erase it, fix it, and then start over again. I was reading the FMs, the field manuals, trying to figure out what I did wrong, and then trying to ask for help later after I've cleared everything out. So it's a blank slate to get started, right? And that standard of perfection carries over into relationships, family relationships, partnerships, and things like that. And so a lot of women feel like they don't have a voice to be heard. It's not safe to be vulnerable. It's not safe to be seen. It's not safe to show up for themselves, for their business. Because what if someone sees me and judges me? Because what if someone remembers me being this way at 15, this way at 20, this way at 25, and now here I am in my later 20s or in my 30s, 40s, 50s, and I'm changing and I'm evolving and I'm not that way. And now I have all of these expectations and eyeballs on me. Can I bear the weight? Do I trust myself to bear the weight? Can I be vulnerable and inspire someone by doing this? What am I doing? Am I crazy? It sounds like a lot, right?
This is what women do. This is what we do.
And
yeah.
And then throw some kids on top of that and a partner, and then you're supposed to be wanted and sexy, and then you're still supposed to take care of all the kids, and you're supposed to do all of these other things. And it's like, when do you have time for yourself to explore yourself, right?
Totally.
And I love the trend going on about I don't know what the official title of it is, but it's basically women saying that they don't want kids, or they don't want kids right away, right? Like they would prefer to be kidless, childless. And kudos to them, because a lot of people who have kids, I'm a mom, a lot of people who have kids are re-traumatized parenting. And if you don't, parenting is traumatizing. I don't care what anyone says. Parenting is freaking traumatizing. It will ignite something in you. And I had to learn how to parent myself and be soft with myself so that I could be soft with my kid. And people love my kid. They think she's amazing, but they don't understand how much traumatizing situations gone on and therapy I went through in order to help her be that person, so that I don't pass that generational trauma on to her. So the women being true to themselves and saying, I'm not going to have kids yet. I don't want kids at all, or I want my tubes tied, and doctors, going back and forth about that in America. Like, heal yourself, get to know yourself, because I know people who have 5 kids or more who have never been on their own and are terrified of the idea of not having a partner, to the point where they really don't know who they are. And every time I'm around them, they're kind of like a chameleon depending on who's around them. And it breaks my heart, because I have so much love for the women in my life, right? But I also see the generational patterns that replay and repeat. So as you continue to heal, it doesn't necessarily go back to your friends and to your family and things like that, but you can carry it forward, carry that light forward, and inspire that next person, inspire that next child, inspire that next creative being, right?
Totally.
Yeah. So I really wanted to share that. I think it's important.
That was a huge release. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Like I'm 12 years deep into a relationship and we're not married. And I think that's for us personally, that works for us.
Yeah.
I don't have kids of my own. He does, and that's what works for us. I'm not at a place to bring kids into the world. And until I feel that way, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to feel pressure from outside. I'm not going to feel like I have to as a woman.
Mm-hmm.
I don't feel like I'm missing out on anything, because I've filled my life with the things that I've chosen. And if I had a kid, I would want them to know that, I would want to teach them that so they could feel that for themselves and experience that for themselves. So yeah, the pressure that is from outside, I think it's like outdated. I personally think it's so outdated.
Yeah.
We are all individual beings with such individual purposes and beliefs and values. And there's no one size fits all for marriage, for partnership, for, starting a family. A family looks like anything these days. And I'm so lit up when I see families that are not your, traditional families.
Yeah.
And I think
families, like your chosen family, right? I love that too. I really do. And being brought up how I was brought up, I can relate to that, because not only was I placed with various different family members and people that weren't family members to be a guardian over me, right? But then when I did grow up and I joined the Army, you start to pick and choose your family, because your real family kind of disappears on you if you're not the one initiating or traveling or showing up and things of that nature. And so having a chosen family is so beautiful, especially with, I don't know how it is in Australia, but I know for the United States right now, there's so much toxicity with people's lifestyle choices, whether it's, the LGBTQ community. I don't understand the whole pronoun debate. Like, everybody has pronouns, but they're like people who get offended, like, I'm not using pronouns. My pronouns are she and her. Okay. And you learn that in English. So I just need for you to just go simmer down somewhere. But it's like the people, the children who are in those places, and I'm in Texas, so they are not as open to the children who are trying to figure out their identity and perhaps going through like, hey, I want my pronouns to be this or that. And I'm totally okay with it, right? So I'm like, come on over here, come sit with us, come play with us, right? And not everyone is as open. But again, why would you set that child up for failure by shunning them or closing them off to become an adult who has to rewire all of these things? But before they rewire all of these things about the pain and the trauma that you caused, you want them to have kids? Like, what? No, no, that's not how this works. That's not how any of this works. Like, we have to meet ourselves more deeply in order to, and it doesn't mean perfect. Please don't hear what I'm saying and think that you have to be perfect in anything. Perfect is boring. Messy and healing is messy, and it takes action, right? Healing is action. It's not idle. But just really be messy, be imperfect, and try on different personalities, try on different hobbies, and really learn yourself so that you can show up and share your crazy story. Like, I know you said you wanted like this really cool title of kind of to identify yourself as a student of the universe, right? Like something really fun. And I love that. And when you show up with that and you show up with that energy, other people who are seeking that literally can find you because you become a beacon of light.
Totally.
Yeah. But
Totally. I'm so lit up by people who can just like quite happily define themselves and be okay with it. And not that it's about the definition, but it's more about the way you show up in the world as a result. And I think people need to go through that process so that you can quieten the haters and you can quieten the people who are even just with a loving heart trying to support you and trying to give you advice, and just go, thank you, but no,
exactly.
I have to have the courage to live my life the way I want to live my life. And it's not selfish. It's not selfish. It's literally you remembering who you are.
Yes.
And it's you tapping into that part of yourself that is universal through, all the people on the planet. You're tapping back into that, and you're showing others. And I believe that you're doing this with your work so beautifully, but you're showing others what it is to be fully expressed. And if you're not there yet, that's okay.
Well, let me just say thank you.
Totally fine. Yeah, you learn so much along the way. Like you can have fun with it. And I've like at least tried to do that, and as much as I like get caught up in the, oh my God, like what am I doing with my life? I'm just thinking, honestly, if I like look at the amounts of joy that I experience in my day, it's exactly what I want. It's exactly where I need to be. And if the rest is not falling into place, that's okay. I'm gonna get there. I'm gonna learn something in the process. I'm gonna learn who I am in the process. And that's way more valuable than any other kind of accolade I could ever receive, and like back to your point about like kids, not being able to express themselves, like it's so sad to me because kids are the ones that we could be learning from. They're the ones who are tapped in. They're the ones who know how to be creative. and we
Mhm.
look at them as if they're like hilarious and cute, because they are, but like we often look at them and we're like, oh, they know nothing and they're still learning, and they've got all this to learn it throughout their life, and they're coming from such a naive perspective. No, they've got such wisdom. They've got such
Yep.
wisdom. And I know that when I tap back into my inner child, I
Mhm.
know that I can't lose, because I remember, like, when I was a kid, I just had this like insatiable need to just be myself, and I lived that every day. And
Mhm.
my life was so simple and yet so beautiful,
Mhm.
and we forget a lot along the way.
Yeah,
So
I
here's to
I
remembering like what we actually we're here to be, not do,
Mhm.
but be.
Yeah. I definitely, something that I shared with my daughter, which is totally not like not what I was raised as by any means, by any caregiver, by any guardian. It was always, you can be seen but not heard. And then most of the time we didn't even want to see you. And with my daughter, I've tried to break that, and I have really clear communication with her. And since she could talk, right? And people could never understand why her language was, she was so well spoken. And it's because I've always talked to her like a person. I've never seen her as an extension of me. She's her
Mm.
own person. And like, this is the emotional part for me, is like, I didn't have a mom, I didn't have a dad raising me. So I had nothing to look back on and reflect on and say, what do I do in this situation? And then my life partner that I had picked, we divorced, and it wasn't my life partner. And then he still is like, doesn't participate in parenting. So it's all on me all the time. So I made a choice back then to talk to her honestly, age appropriate, right? But honestly, and to let her know that I don't always have it right. And when I make a mistake, I apologize to my child. And I have that open communication with her, and I let her know. And she's my Gemini, but she's also a manifester. She's
Yeah.
very fiery. She's very like sensitive, but she's playful. She's like the most beautiful, precious soul I have ever come in contact with, and I don't want to mess it up, right? And she
Yeah.
teaches me things
Yeah.
on the daily, and I tell her that. She reminds me to have fun. And there are different areas where we have resistance because I am okay, I'm going to be calm. I'm earthy, so I'm grounded. I'm going to keep you, but she's air and she's chaotic and she's
Yeah.
like a kid. So she's up here. So like trying to like reparent myself to parent her in that transition. I often tell her, hey, we're figuring this out together. You didn't like the way that you heard this information, and I didn't like the way I felt when you said this to me. So let's talk about this and like grow from this, right? And a lot of people think that that's crazy as a parent, but we can still learn from kids. And when we learn from them and we let them feel, hey, my voice matters, my voice is important. She shares things with me that other parents around me say like their kids would never share.
Mm.
My kid comes up to me and says she feels safe with me. And that is the best compliment I have ever received in my life.
Oh, congratulations. That's
You know,
beautiful. Yeah, that's beautiful.
and all I can think of for her is like, she has really big emotions. She's at that age where like puberty is kind of sort of a thing. So like hormones are kind of up and down, and we talk about big emotions. And there are people who are grown adults who don't have the emotional maturity that she has. And so when she gets upset, like I have her like since she was probably about 5 or 6, like, what is that little girl inside of you saying, right? Her inner child. And I don't talk her through like all of the spiritual language about things, but I introduce her to different aspects of herself in different ways so that she can communicate her needs in a way so that the people around her can support her.
Yeah.
And I want her to be able to do that even when I'm not around. And in doing that, like she's going to inspire other people, like you are going to inspire other people who hear and see how you show up in life.
Mm.
And I feel like to a certain extent, sometimes that's enough,
Mm.
right? we don't have to like eat the whole cake at once. It's okay to take a bite at a time. And I say that for the listeners who may feel like they have someone, an influencer who pops up in their mind that they may follow, or a mommy daddy influencer. I know that the parent pages are really popular, or the spiritual healers and gurus online who have the most beautiful aesthetics on their social media. There is so much that goes on behind the scenes, and I do my best to just be transparent and honest and vulnerable, which is something we wanted to talk about too. Because when you are honest, when you are truthful, you can inspire someone else to say, hey, if they can be a hot ass mess and do this, maybe I can do it too. It may not look the same. It may not have the beautiful marketing, right? But maybe I can do it too. Maybe I can take that step forward. And then you help them take that step forward. So we're almost to our hour mark, but if you could just share a bit of wisdom, with one of our listeners, or a message that you have for them, what would you want to share with them, my love?
It's just to cultivate the courage to speak your truth and look after that courage and give yourself proof every day of how capable you are of achieving that, you know. And like, you have opportunities, literally so many opportunities every day if you reframe them. You know, that the happenings in your life, they happen for a reason, and they're here to show you what's possible. You know, I'm a big believer in, you know, showing myself what's possible. Even if I'm like scrolling, let's keep it really realistic, right? We're all on social media, we're all scrolling. Surround yourself, start following accounts that actually are like 1 or 2 steps ahead of you for where you want to be in terms of expression. I'm not talking about career. I'm not talking about, you know, they've got the $1 million life that you want. I'm literally talking about how they show up every single day. And I love following accounts that like document what they do, why they do it. It helps me to integrate it with my own experience and then go, do I want this or do I not want this? I can take from that actually works for me, and I can leave that doesn't work for me, you know. And you've got to be discerning. You've really got to be discerning, and you've got to be really careful with what you absorb. But once you are and you've set yourself up, it almost becomes this automatic response of your brain, like they call it the reticular activating system. The brain literally will learn how to piece it all together and make that a reality for you if you see it enough times, and if you see it like first thing in the morning or last thing at night. If you're scrolling last thing at night and you genuinely can't sleep, go follow accounts that actually inspire you and give yourself proof. I call them expanders, you know, people that come into your life, real or otherwise, that come into your life to show you, because they're a few steps ahead on the path. And they've embodied what you're trying to manifest. They're an example in the world of what you're trying to manifest. And that can be for anything. You know, I'm just talking about self-expression, but it can be for anything, obviously. So, your environment really does influence you more than you realize. So I want to share more. And this is just the first sharing that I've been so grateful to receive from the universe. And I hope my words have helped someone at least.
Oh, I know that they have. And I would invite you, well, I guess I can just officially, if you would like to come back on the Soulpreneur Life podcast, you are more than welcome. I'd be honored to have you. And to our listeners, I just want to say thank you for being with us today, for listening, for tuning in. Make sure that you leave us some comments. Let us know what resonated, or get in touch with us on social media. I do have one-on-one offerings. I have guided or prompted journals for the Soulpreneur Soulpreneur, which really help you dig into your inner child, dig into your shadow work, as some people would call it, where you really start to become aware of what are my automatic thoughts, what are my automatic behaviors, or who am I around when these things happen, or when these things are kind of triggered, because our energy often tells us things before our brain can register it. So when you take time to actually be still and, write some of these things out, or have some people who like to voice clip into their devices, right? Because not everyone's a writer like me, but I have all of these tools set up on the Soulpreneur Life LLC website because everyone is different. Sometimes we need support. Sometimes we need to just take a moment to be still with ourselves, with our thoughts, and we have to be able to express it. And there's something so magical about putting pen to paper. There's something so magical about speaking what it is that is going on in your mind and getting it out of your body and making room, allowing space for what it is that you think that you want. And I love that you mentioned the scrolling thing. I can't remember the name of the app. I shared it in the Soulpreneur Life Facebook group a while back. It's probably been like 2 years ago now, about this vision board app that it works with your subconscious mind, and it flashes all of the pictures that you put on there. And every time that I used it, I accomplished what I wanted. And that was before I even, no, it's been more than 2 years ago now, because it was before I even started working in the Akashic Records or being trained and certified. So it was probably 2018 or 19, but it's in the guides as a resource for people to use. Because when you allow yourself that space, right? When you allow yourself to become aware, mindful, as some would call it, then you can change the behaviors that continue to feed that pattern. And people who feel like they're stuck in a loop or a pattern or a generational cycle, the most powerful thing you can do, if you can't do it on yourself, I'm here, I can help you, right? But is to become aware of it, to receive support and be discerning, like Miss Gaia recommended, right? Like, be discerning, because there are a lot of people, but just use your discernment. I don't want to talk, I never want to talk bad about anyone. I just want people to be smart, because there are a lot of people out there who, not everything that glitters is gold, I guess is the best phrase to use, right? And yeah, so I'm just going to leave it at that. So if you want to reach out, book a discovery call, feel free to do that. I'll have all the information in the description box as usual. And I just want to thank you for your time, and thank you, Gaia, for coming on. I look forward to having you on again, hopefully sometime soon, so that we can just continue a deeper discussion and talk about vulnerability and transformation and all of these new things that you are diving into, as well as you continue to unfold this beautiful discovery, this journey that you're on, right?
I'm so honored to come back on, and I'm so grateful to have this opportunity. Thank you so much. And thank you for all the work that you do. Like, I'm endlessly inspired by you still to this day. Time is an illusion. That's why we have no time, or we think we have no time. I would love to talk to you some more. So thank you.
Yes, I would love to talk to you again too. So we'll definitely talk about that. And I will talk to all of our listeners again on our next Soulpreneur Life podcast, sending each and every single one of you a lot of love and gratitude for being with us today.